More than 13,000 tourists have been barred from coming to South Africa because of the controversial regulation about having to travel with unabridged birth certificates for minors. 800 other passengers who flew into the country earlier in October missed their connecting flights because of lengthy delays at the immigration desks at OR Tambo International Airport. Now, the figures were provided by the Tourism Business Council of South Africa. They say the average tourist spends around 13,000 rand per day in South Africa, meaning that potential revenue of around 7.51 billion rand was lost because of this regulation. Well, to discuss the state of tourism, I have with me Gauteng Tourism CEO, Sipho Ngwenya. Welcome, great to have you, and congrats on your new post, 10 months on the job. I'm sure it's been hectic.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a quick learning and catch up. I think we are on course. Exciting industry to be part of. Very exciting because it impacts on a number of other sectors. I mean, in tourism, we deal with, it has to do with the food industry, you have to deal with the transport industry, you have to deal with the health industry, you have to deal with the other regulatory industries, your home affairs, your SARS. So it's an all-rounder sector that touches on many other sectors that are there. And more so, tourism is one of the sectors that is a key economic growth driver in terms of the National Development Plan, and also in the province of Gauteng in terms of our plan which is aligned to the NDP, which is the one of growing the economy of Gauteng by transforming it, by growing the township economy, and as well as ensuring that we fit into the requirement growth numbers that has been projected by the NDP for job creation. So without a doubt, this is a big contributor to GDP in the country. What do you make of the current situation in terms of how the controversial visa regulation is impacting on the sector? The regulatory issues are very key in the tourism sector because prior to you traveling, you've got to be certain that you will be welcome in that country, and the only issue that gives you that certainty is when you are told that your visa is granted. And therefore, coming into the country and getting a further delay before you enter then creates a very jittery situation to a traveler. And also affects it gives the first impression and a perception about being welcomed into that country. So the visa regulation is a very, very important element of dealing with traveling of people from one country to the other. So we need to get it right because first impressions count, and we're seeing a big impact on the numbers at the moment. And as you mentioned, Gauteng is a big contributor to the economy as well. But give us a sense in terms of the tourism sector of Gauteng's contribution to tourism. Gauteng has put up a plan called Transformation, Modernization and Reindustrialization, and it also put another one in terms of looking at the analysis of the economy of Gauteng, which is a township enterprise revitalization, because Gauteng is more urban than most of the other provinces, and the large concentration of the population that needs to be developed is in the townships, and therefore, in terms of the tourism impact in Gauteng, it's that looks into people who come here to the business hub that contributes a lot into the GDP of the country. Over 35% of the GDP generated in here. Therefore, it means all the business activities happen in Gauteng. But a business investor also wants leisure, wants to do other things beyond doing business. Sure. And therefore, when they come into Gauteng here, the strategy is that we also touch on developing the areas of the townships where they will go and see the townships and look look at the experiences that we offer around those places. So therefore...
So your strategy is all-inclusive, taking into account smaller players, etc.?
Our strategy is comprehensive, that takes into consideration the development of SMMEs, that looks into the transformation of the industry and the sector, that looks into how growth can be generated without looking at it from a trickle-down approach, but looking at how you support that particular growth in terms of integrating the smaller players into the bigger players of the economy. I mean, our center towns of your Melrose, your Santen, your Pretoria or Tshwane, and the other areas that anchor the growth of the economy in terms of city region developments, need also to look into the other peripheral areas that also need to be developed in terms of ensuring that we have this global city region concept embraced comprehensively.
What is your expectation, Sipho, for this year in terms of growth? What are you expecting in terms of the numbers?
Yeah, well, linking it up also to the concern you asked us. I mean, Gauteng is the main entry point into South Africa. Our OR Tambo is a jewel airport that we have for everybody to come in here. We are competing with other countries such as Kenya, Ethiopia, which are repositioning themselves to be the gateway into Africa.
Yeah, and they're doing particularly well, especially Kenya with the latest GDP numbers as well.
That's correct. I mean, we averagely have about 200,000 people that comes through our airport on average. We have also spending around or contribution of close to about 30 billion per annum that goes into the tourism. And if people will be turned away because of the visa regulations, it requires an urgent dialogue between tourism and Home Affairs and other regulatory companies. Then, because for us, then impacts on those numbers that I've mentioned in terms of our growth.
This is a very competitive industry. Tour operators have to compete package per package, deal per deal.
Absolutely.
So it's crucial that we get it right. Yet we've been having this dialogue that you mentioned for quite some time. In fact, there were supposed to be changes in February. So the narrative, unfortunately, sadly, is still the same.
7th to the 9th of November is what is called the World Tourism Market in London. South African tourism has got a big stall in there with all the provinces in there. The bigger question that will be asked in London is about the whole issue around the visa regulation and the whole issue of how we make it easily for people to travel into Africa. Inclusively, it's also around the agenda of Africa on how we ensure that people within Africa travels well, because we do have what we call core markets, which needs to be the market that brings bigger numbers, but also traveling of people from Africa for medical reasons, for educational reasons, and also for the economy, because South Africa is still a key player in the economy. So there is a lot of people that come from other African states into here. So we need to look into what the other countries have done. If EU has worked for people to travel freely around the European countries, let alone Brexit, it's their own issues. But for us in South Africa, we do have good relations in South Africa with all African states, and therefore if we are going to open up our entry points in terms of people from other African states coming in here, I think we will deal a lot with increasing the economy. So that's what tourism is all about. We've got a traveler who becomes a trader and becomes an investor by liking and enjoying the country. So
you're saying that is crucial. We need to really look into the debates or the talks that's been going on about one African passport come 2020. And that is a pragmatic solution to boost tourism.
One African passport is a very crucial element to look at. We need to acknowledge as well that the technological transformation that is happening at Home Affairs in terms of improving the system, it's more than welcome.
So it's been rather slow, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it has been slow because I think there were other challenges that are there. But the only way it can make also bigger impacts is if we share this technology with the other African states. If we're able to deal with issues of trans-Africa around how we deal with management of animals between the borders of Africa in there and manage that very well, we should also come to a level of which are the ministerial or departments that needs to come together and come up with a practical solution. And by now, I think we should be at the level of piloting what could work maybe at a SADC level that you can open up for Zimbabwe and the other countries. And I do think that Home Affairs for granting people of Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, the current permits that have been granted is a step in the right direction.
So these are little steps, but we're moving there to really fully open up the potential of tourism in terms of how it can contribute, uplift the lives of ordinary people and contribute to growth in the economy. That was a very, very insightful discussion. Thank you so much for your contribution today.